pals? DPP? Are you down with DPP? Yeah, you know me. Alright, we're starting off strong with some songs. That's always a good sign of the ridiculousness to come. Okay, number one, numero uno. I've just been receiving so much love today. I posted up the first part of this. We're going to organize some more today. Today I posted up the first part of the Organize With Me, and it's just gotten some nice loving from you guys, and I am just here to say I can't come up with a good song, so just thanks. I'm here to say thank you very, very much, and like, you totally inspired me to like, all right, fine, I'll sit down and organize some more. I mean, if that's what the people want, who am I to, you know, keep it from you? So yeah, we're gonna first of all, if you are playing that drinking game where every time I flip through this looking for this page, pour your drinks now, because it's gonna be a doozy, I have a feeling. Since we last spoke, I did receive in my 2 additional drawer units, and now I am literally surrounded by drawers. Okay, I've got one to the left of me with a little one on top of it. I've got 2 directly in front of me, and then I've got 2 more directly to my right. So if you were to look at me, you would not see me, you would only see these drawers. I could hide. I could hide from the world over here. I think I will. I think I'll just curl up in a little ball with all my little drills and say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, but I did go through and I cut all those little boards, the divider boards, and I numbered all my drawers through 3866. There are a lot of colors. And yeah, so I'm ready to rock and roll. Hopefully I won't yeah, get too confused, because I just got so confused the other night. And I think this is it, guys. I think I'm going to tell you the story of the babies, my little babies. Okay, we're going to start way back at the beginning. When I was growing up, I was not someone who like dreamt of her wedding or having children. It just never really crossed my mind. I was like, whatever, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Either way, don't care. I didn't have a lot of babies in my life growing up. I didn't have like baby cousins that lived around me. I didn't have any nieces or nephew. I have a nephew now, but he was born after my babies. And so, yeah, it just wasn't something I felt so strongly about. So, that being said, then I met my husband, my husband, and crafty Tina Lynn. I met him online. Yes, I did. Story for another day. Ha, keep you waiting. Always keep them wanting more. That is, I'm not going to jump the shark today. You see what I'm saying? Okay, but I got to do some of this while we do that. And, yeah. Okay, so I met my husband and kind of was like, oh, you know what? I didn't do all the little cards. Well, darn it to heaven and Bitsy. My goodness me. All right, well, we'll just have to keep going. 9:45. La la. I'm just putting the ones that are already done. I think I already said this yesterday, but I'm just putting them like right into the drawers with the other new system. I'm not redoing what I've already done. It's just not gonna happen. Okay. Any more drawers? No. Okay. So then I met my husband, and we weren't trying to have a baby, but we weren't not trying to have a baby, if you know what I mean. It was more like, well, if I get pregnant, well then I guess we're having a baby. Don't have 926. Okay. So so we got married, and immediately after we got married, we moved away from Montreal, which is where we both grew up, to Berkeley, California, which is where, I lost my lines, which is where he went to grad school and completed his PhD. So for the first 6 years of our marriage, we lived in Berkeley. It was a nice little life we had there. Looking for page 8. Let the drinking begin, guys. I was working full-time. He was a full-time student. I'm an accountant, like I've mentioned in the past, and there I worked for some audit firms, which is like external auditing. So a company wants to have their financial records checked. They call an auditing company, an accounting firm. We go in and we, take a sample of their books and their different transactions, and we say, yep, good enough, or nope, you got to put through these adjustments. So that's what I was doing, and I liked it well enough until I was like, ugh, can't stand driving around, going to client after client, cleaning up their mess, and then once I get it all beautiful and working well, I leave and go clean up somebody else's mess. And so when one of those clients reached out and said, hey, we would like to hire you as our, I know this is the baby story, but I told you I was starting at the beginning. We would like to hire you as our controller. We want you to just work for us in-house. So I did that. And so there we were, hunky-dory, moving along with life, and like not having a baby, like just not. And then we kind of were like, I wonder if there's like a reason that we're not having a baby. And you know how it is, like when you can't have something, that's when you really want something. And that's kind of what happened to me. I really wanted, first of all, I really wanted to have a baby with my husband. Like that's what got my wheels moving. But then when we couldn't have one, I was like, well, why not? I want one. Why can't I have one? So we went to see a doctor, and we tried, and they said, okay, well, if it's been, several years, then yeah, we probably should do some tests. And the tests came back showing that not only did I have a problem, but my husband had a problem. So his sperm had low, it's called motility, which means they basically just bumped heads into each other and didn't know where to go, or didn't go anywhere, or swam in circles. And if you knew my husband, you'd be like, well, of course that's what happened. That's so mean of me, but he's like the absent-minded professor. It's like, it's totally like his stereotype. So then look at me, I found it right away. So no drinking for you. Well, maybe a little bit of drinking. And me, well, at this point, I'm 34 years old, and they are just, those eggs are kind of shriveling. When there's this many bags to look through, boxes, bags, drawers to look through, takes a minute. Okay, I'm just gonna trim these down. So, yeah, I wasn't making any eggs. Just wasn't happening. So then they do the standard stuff where you try intrauterine insemination, where they basically turkey baste you. So they would collect a sample from my husband, and then we would rush it over to the hospital, to the doctor's office, and I would be taking Clomid, which is like a fertility drug to make you make eggs. And then they would turkey baste that up there, and hopefully one would meet the other, give it a little head start, and away we would go. 996. There's no 99. Oh, there is a 996. La 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 la. 996. I have it. Okay. So I don't need to make one, and it's in the back. Okay. We did that 5 times, and no, it didn't work, and it was like heartbreaking each time. It was like heartbreaking, and not to mention a little spendy. And then finally we met with the doctor again, And she just basically said, you know, your chances of inception your chances of inception are extremely low without in vitro. So we were like, okay, guess it's time to look into that. So she sent us to this lovely Polish man, and the only reason I bring up that he's Polish is because of the conversation my husband had with him, which I will tell you about in a minute. It was pretty hilarious. So he said, okay, come on in. We did more tests, and then their first like protocol is to give the woman the birth control pill, which I was like, are you sure you want to put the brakes on me? And they said, yep, this is the way we do it, because this way we can know when you're ovulating. So, I mean, there was something else with the birth control pill. It wasn't just that, but honestly, I don't recall. And so we did that, and we went in. I went in to have levels tested. Yeah, they took blood just to see what was happening. I don't think they even did they didn't do, what's it called when they rub the thing on you? A ultrasound. They didn't do an ultrasound. They just did level, like HST, not HST. I forget I never thought I would forget this stuff, guys. It was such a huge part of our life. But, they would do the test, and they said that there was no activity whatsoever. And oh, no, excuse me. I took a whole lot of medication. Back the phone up. And let me back up again to those 5 disappointments, because each one was like a blow to the gut, right? I mean, you work up to this moment, you're waiting all month, then you go in, you spread your legs for the lady. I lost all humility. I was like, whatever, take a look, take a peek. Anyone else want to come in for a minute? And then you wait and you wait, and then look, yeah, you get your period, and you cry, and you cry. And I remember I was working on that first quilt that I made. It was Rabbits Prefer Chocolate, and it was a very sweet applique quilt, and it was based on the old-fashioned chocolate molds of bunnies. And it was just like little bunnies in a truck, and little bunnies trick-or-treating, or not trick-or-treating, hopping around, and I don't know. And I would just sit in my little quilt room that I had at the time. It's just like little tiny room, and just kind of cry and quilt and sew, and just kind of, all right, we'll try this again. And then we went to the in vitro doctor, and he had me take all of the medications. So it was shots and pills, and the first couple of shots I was not happy about at all. My husband had to do them, and then finally I was like, I think I could do it myself, and so I did. And I don't have any 961s, so it's time to make a line. And in addition to all of that was the birth control pills. And then you go in and take the blood test. And then they called and they said that there was no activity. Nothing had happened with all those special medications and all the injections. Nothing had happened. And I was like bereft. Like, so, like, I remember crying and making sounds that like I'd never made in my life before or since. Like, just like from my gut, you know, like, ugh. And I thought that was it. Like, I'm this barren woman who's never gonna have a baby. And so right away I was like, okay, well, can we get a surrogate? Can we, hang on, to be continued. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm sorry. I thought I was done with the cardboard making, but I'm not. I'm just not. Oh well. Get our cutter back. And I'm trying to stay in frame here. I don't know if I am. I'm doing my best. Just diamond paint, okay? Do something else. So we went in to see him, and I was like, okay, so what do we do? Do we do surrogacy? Can we, I don't know. I was like, are we stuck adopting? Like, okay, it's not going to work, right? And he was like, whoa, hold your horses. That was just the first try. Well, the first try cost $6,000 in medication. And I was like, okay. And he said, okay, well, obviously the birth control part of that was not good for you. So we're going to try it again. We're going to alter the medications a little bit. And then we'll check again. We'll try again. And so we waited a few months, and then we did it again. We went back. We got all the medications. I have to cut them the other way too. And then, lo and behold, the tests showed activity. Everyone was like, oh, phew, yay. So then the day came. So when you're doing in vitro, like in vitro means in glass. So they have to take the egg from the lady bits, and they put it in a dish, and then they take the sperm from the boy bits and put that in the dish. Or they can just plop them in a dish together and let nature take its course. Or they can go one step further, which is actually inject the little spermie into the egg so like he can't get lost, you know? And so that's what we did. And to have your eggs extracted is like major surgery. You go on, like you are under general anesthetic. I've heard like on TV shows that they don't always put you under general, but that's ER. That's not real life. But I was definitely put under general anesthetic. And after all those drugs, they got four little eggies. Some people have like 30, and then they freeze half of them. Well, we had four lovely little eggies. And so they took them out, and they injected the spermatozoa, and 3 of them started multiplying. So then we had 3 little multiplying eggs. And we're like, well, what do we do with all of them? And they said, oh, no, you just put them all in, because there's no point in saving one, and the odds of any of them taking of the 3 are still very, very low. So you would definitely have all of them put back. And so the day that you have your eggs, your fertilized eggs, embryos, I should say, because they're already multiplying, and it was so funny. They sent you a picture of the dish with like the multiplying embryo eggies in them, and I sent my parents a picture of this dish with the magnified picture in it, and I was like, your future grandchildren. My father blew it up and had it in his office. It was pretty cute. And so the day comes where they say, okay, they've matured enough in the dish. It's time to put them back into the womb, which you have lovingly been preparing for them. And that day they say, okay, drink, I don't know, 8 glasses of water, something ridiculous, and then don't pee, and then come in. Remember, it was April 1st, and I was like, this better not be a joke. Don't play no April Fool's trick on me. And we went in, and oh, I had to pee. I had to pee so bad. I was like crying. And they're like, well, maybe you can just let out a little bit. I was like, I'll try. I don't know if I can stop the floodgates once they open, but I did, and I had to pee, and they had like another couple before us, and they were taking long, and I had to pee so badly. And I finally get on the table, and they're like, oh, wow, no, you should go pee a little bit, because this is too full. And I was like, I told you so. So then they very carefully placed them, 1, 2, 3, little embryos into the womb, And they tell you, okay, we'll just go home, take it easy, and come back in a week and we'll do a blood test. And then you'll come back a week later, we'll do another blood test, and then we'll see, you know, I wish I could remember, is it HCG hormone? It should be doubling every other day. So if you come in at week 1 and it's 170, let's say, then at week 2, it should be at least at like 500. And so I went in at week 1, and they called to tell me what the level was. And I was like, okay, so what is it? And they said, oh yeah, you're pregnant. And I was like, well, how can you, I thought you had to wait till the 2nd week. And they said, no. When you have 1,500, you're definitely pregnant, and you're more than likely having twins. And I was like, shut the damn door. Are you serious? She's like, you are 100% pregnant. There's no doubt about it. And you know what? I was. We went in to see the little babies, and they said, well, you have a baby. The 3rd one, I don't know, whatever happened to that guy. He gave up right quick. But they said you have a baby and a maybe. Because one was like doing really well, had like the pole or the yolk or the whatever they call it. Thank goodness you do forget these things, because it is all consuming. And the other one, yeah, maybe. Then we went back a week later, and they're like, oh, no, that's 2 babies. That is definitely 2 babies, because there are 2 heartbeats. And I was like, there's 2 heartbeats? We're having babies? And talk about your happy little parents, because we were just like unbelievably happy. We're like, oh my God. And I will say, it took so long to get pregnant, and we went through so many tests and disappointments, and like all told, I had the babies. I was 35 when I gave birth. I think I was like 33 when we started trying. It was 2 years of like trying to have a baby, and it was like a lot of dollars too. But I figured, you know, being the accountant that I am, I could depreciate the money over 2, because I was getting 2 for 1, right? So that was always a good joke to tell. Where did I put my drawer? Oh, here's my drawer. Okay. And did I already do the 961 in the book? Guys, did I? 961 on page 2. I didn't. 9, column 2, 961. There it is. I didn't do it yet. Okay. And so, oh, good thing it's this one, because I cut it open. Oopsie daisy there. Loo-doo-doo. So it was so hard to get pregnant, but man, once I was pregnant, I was golden. I had 1 day of terrible, you know, morning sickness. Like I was throwing up and throwing up and throwing up and throwing up and throwing up, and it wouldn't stop and it wouldn't go away. And one thing about the Kaiser in Oakland, California, they had like a really great call-in service. It was really good coverage. I liked that HMO. I wish we had it here. It was just like all in one, and everybody had your file, and it was all very convenient. And are these greasy? Are these oily or just chunky? I'm hoping they're just chunky. I think so, because they wouldn't even do that, right? Right? Okay. And they said, you know what? You might be getting dehydrated. Why don't you just come in and we'll check you? Because they didn't want to screw around, because these were like $1 million babies at this point, and I appreciated that. And so I called my husband, and they said, no, obviously don't come on your own. Come in with your husband. So I called him, and he was at school, and he always biked there. So he was coming home, and he was coming home, like trying to get home really quickly, and might have cut off a driver and might have given some sort of gesture that upset him. And the driver starts following him. Like, he's on his bike, and the driver is chasing him in his car, and he's going through stop signs and lights, and the guy is chasing him, and then he cuts him off, stops the car, gets out of it with something that my husband said might have been like a tire iron, and said, "Stop, I want to talk to you." And my husband was like, "I want to talk to you." Then he calls me, and he's crying like a little girl, screaming, saying, "Someone's chasing me, someone's chasing me." And then I heard him go, "Ah!" And the phone went dead. And I was like, what? What? So I kept trying to call him back, no answer. I'm like freaking out now. And then finally he calls me, and he's like, "I fell off my bike." And I said, "What the hell happened?" So he told me the story, and apparently he just ended up falling off his bike, and the guy drove off. But then I had to go get him and rescue him so that he could rescue me, and we went off to the prenatal unit. But yeah, so yeah, that was a fun phone call. I'm being chased. Ah! Bye. Now I need a baggie. A little baggie for your time. Yes, maybe. Very good. You know what I say. So then, so that was the one day of morning sickness. And then at like, 20 weeks, I started getting contractions. They hurt. And they just would I just would get contractions. They would just hurt. And so they decided that I should probably be on semi-bed rest, which is like the best kind of bed rest, because it meant like, yeah, you can't work, but you could go to Target. So that's what I did until I had the kids. I didn't have to work from 20 weeks until they were born at 36 weeks. I hung out with my friends. I just got pregnant, more and more pregnant. I had my belly touched by more than a few strangers because it was gigantic, because there was 2 of them in there. And I was so happy because I've never been like a petite. But I was trying to get in shape to have a baby, because I was like, well, maybe I'm not having a baby because I'm not in good shape. So I was like really exercising and trying. And I had my little dream, which was to be someone who didn't look pregnant from the back, but then you turned around and you saw the baby bump. And this bump was quite a bump. It was like a little place to put my plate when I sat down to eat. And so I just grew those babies as best as I could. And they were like, "Do you want to schedule a C-section?" Because it was getting to be really uncomfortable. And I was like, no, I don't see any reason to do that. I can hack this out for as long as it takes. Even though I can't sleep, I can't turn over without clutching my husband to help me hoist it over. I had to pee every 30 seconds. They were kicking me like crazy. Sarah had her foot in my belly button for like a month, I think. And then after dinner, we'd watch them do tricks, and like you could see them, like it was so cute. And we'd go do ultrasounds, and you could see the little babies moving. And then one time there was like a little bubble in there, and she said, "Oh, well, your daughter just farted on your son's head." It was like, awesome. The time when we went to get the gender ultrasound, we so we had our choice. I mean, everyone lies if they say they don't care. Everyone has their first choice. So hang on. Our first choice was 2 girls. Obviously, second choice was a boy and a girl, and then from there, third choice was 2 boys. Nothing against sweet little boys, but that was just our gut instinct. So we went in, and first they do all the measuring, like the baby's head, the baby's leg, the this, the that, the foot size, the elbow size. I don't know. They measured every little part of 2 babies before they would tell you the gender. I guess because they wanted you to not be upset, or, you know, not to be too emotional while they're trying to get all the stats that they need. And then the first one that they said was that you're having a little boy. And I just started to cry. And I said, I'm having a boy? And at that moment, I was just so happy. And I realized, you know what? I don't care if it's a boy or a girl. I'm just having a baby. I'm starting to cry right now. I'm having a real baby. I'm having 2 of them. And so then she says, oh, and a girl. And the first thing I said was, I can shop for anything. And my husband said, oi, she can shop for anything. And then we knew we're having a boy and a girl. And we were just like happy, just so happy, and getting ready and getting 2 of everything. I mean, having twins is just not, it's like, you don't have hand-me-downs. Like, you don't have a stroller from one kid that you save because you might have another baby. You need 2 strollers, and then you also need a double stroller. You need 2 car seats, 2 cribs, 2 bassinets, 2 swings, 2 jumpy toys, 2 mission controls that we called them, which is like the thing that you put the baby in the middle, 2 hopper things. Well, some of those we only got 1, but a lot of them we did buy 2 of because it was just insanity having 2 babies. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So then I'm gigantic and I really can't even move. I'm so uncomfortable. And my husband's like, let's go to the movies. I was like, I can go sit on my ass at the movies. That's no problem with me. So we went to see, I think, the remake of Sherlock Holmes, which came out sometime in 2006. November in 2006, actually. And we watched the movie. Everything was fine. I go to the ladies' room afterwards and leave the ladies' room. Everything's fine. And then I'm walking to my husband and I feel whoosh. And I said, oh my God, hold my purse. And I ran back to the bathroom, waddled back to the bathroom. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, my water broke. So I ran up, I go back outside. I was like, honey, my water broke. My water broke. I'm sure my water broke. I don't know what's going on, but that has to be it. And so we call the OB line and they said, yep, okay, come on in. And I was like, okay, I'm not having any labor pains. I don't feel like I'm in labor. I'm just, making a mess. And they said, okay, well, you do. I was like, do I have time to go home and get my stuff and whatever? They said, yep, take your time. If you do start having active labor pains, obviously hurry up. I could not believe how much quote unquote water there is when your water breaks. It's pretty ridiculous. And so we went and got some Mexican food because we were hungry. We went back home. We got my stuff, my bag, whatever. We went to the hospital. We went up to the floor that they tell you to go to. And 931 is done. Booyah! And then we just kind of waited for the magic to happen. They checked. They said, yep, it's definitely that your water broke. They checked the water situation. Because I once thought it happened before, but it turned out I was just peeing my pants a little bit. Yeah. It's fun when you don't even know you're peeing yourself, isn't it? So then, 962. Then quite a few hours went by and there was no activity. But once your water breaks, it's like the barrier between the baby and the outside world has been broken. And so there's risk of infection. So like you kind of have to have your baby at that point. And when you have 2 babies, if you have the one baby, you have to have both babies. So it was Sarah's water that broke. Then they gave me the Pitocin that puts you into labor. And it did. And it hurt like a son of a bitch. Remember, all I wanted to do was lie down, but I was so cramped up that I couldn't lie down. I had to sit up. I just wanted to lie down. And then finally they came in and they gave me the epidural and I lay down and fell asleep. I took a nice long nap. And when they woke, this was probably like at 2 o'clock in the morning. And then when they woke me up at like 8, they were like, how do you feel? I said, oh yeah, I'm feeling fine. I said, there's just like a little bit of pressure maybe, but I'm fine. And they check and they're like, yep, your baby's on the way. So they take me into the OR, and the delivery unit at that hospital has an OR on the same floor, and they always deliver twins in the OR because you don't know what's going to happen, which is very true. So they take me in there, and within 10 minutes, Sarah was born. She was ready, raring to go. She came out in full force, and I gotta tell you, it was like the most wonderful feeling in the world. It really was. I was like, oh my God. And I'm gonna be very vulgar right now, and I'm sorry for that, but it was like the best poop you ever have. Good night, dear. So yeah, it was basically, yeah, it's pretty nice. And then they show her to me, they show her to Jared. At one point, Jared like looks over the curtain. He's like, oh my God, you're doing this. I can't believe you're really doing this. And I was like, what did you think was gonna happen? And then she comes along, they go and they clean her up. And then they're like, okay, time for number 2. I'm like, okay, time for number 2. That was easy. Well, number 2 had some problems. Problem number 1 was that he was both hands down and feet down, and his head was stuck up. So it's like his head was arched back, and he was like forward, like completely pointed down. Like he was on all fours, but his head was stuck up there. So they tried to like manipulate him from outside, and they couldn't move him. They couldn't move him. So then, oh, that wasn't very comfortable at all. So then they said, okay, well, we're gonna have to do a C-section, which I wasn't thrilled about, but I was prepared for, because apparently when you have twins and one leaves, the other one's like, got some room in here finally, and they start moving all around, and they can end up in ridiculous positions. And so I was like, okay, yep, time for the C-section. And then it was taking a really long time, and I wasn't feeling very well. And they kept saying, how you doing? How you doing? And when you have surgery, and I didn't know this, but your arms are out like you're on the cross. So your arms are out by your side. You're lying there. Your feet are up in the stirrups. I'm woozy. I don't feel good. I just felt like I was gonna faint. And it was taking so long. And then like 20 minutes later, which is extremely long for twins, like 20 minutes later, all right, they get Maxie. And we had our little boy, and we, you know, yay, everybody's great APGAR scores, everything's hunky-dory. They take us out of there, they bring you to the next room, they clean up the babies, they help me feed them for the first time. We go upstairs to our room. We're in our room, everything's great. At this point, Jared hasn't slept at all, and he's like a student teacher and like can't really miss class too much. So he had to go home and sleep and go to work and teach. And I was there with like 2 babies, couldn't move because I just had natural birth and a C-section and 2 babies to take care of. I was completely overwhelmed. Thank God, the first night I had the meanest nurse in the world. She was just so awful. Oh, she lied to me, she tricked me. She said, okay, we're gonna have to take out the catheter. And I was like, no, I can't get up to pee. You can't take it out. And she's like, okay, I won't. Okay, just stand up and I'll check it. And she ripped it right out, and it fucking hurt. And that stupid bitch, I'm sorry, I'm not a sweary channel. Try not to be. But, yeah, that stupid bitch hurt the frick out of me. And, it hurt. It just hurt. I mean, I understand that they want you walking, but that was just mean. That was just a mean trick. And so, yeah, she could... Yeah. So then I got the nice nurse finally, and then So I'm like I'm trying to feed both babies. Maxie latched perfectly. He was fine. She was fine. She was holding her head up. She was just a little bit ridiculous. Still ahead of her class, you know, like she was born in the AIG program. So everything was great. And then in like 3 seconds, Jared came in to see us. It smelled like poopy. So I was like, oh, you gonna change your first diaper? And he's like, oh my god, what do I do? And we had taken the parenting class together, and I was like, I don't know, I haven't done one either, but just follow what they showed us when we did it on that little doll. And so he started to change Maxie's diaper, and then Maxie throws up and starts choking. And he's not breathing, and we're screaming for the nurses, and they come in, they take one look at Max, and they ran out of the room with him, and he was in the NICU for the next 15 days. He turns out that he had a collapsed lung that did heal on its own, which is what they're supposed to do, but it took a very long time until he was breathing without additional oxygen. The babies, their weight was actually pretty darn good for twins. She was 5 pounds 5 ounces, and he was 5 pounds 4 ounces. So I thought, oh my god, I have these giant babies. That's fantastic. And then they just kind of kept saying, well, he's fine. He's fine, but you know, he's gonna have to stay here. And then we're still in the hospital, so now I just have Sarah with me. And we're like cuddling and doing all the new baby stuff, and I kept her with me overnight, and the first night she was with me, and I wore her like a scarf, and it was just wonderful. And then the second night, the second day, no, so I had the babies, and that day, then that night, the mean lady took out the catheter. The next day, Maxie was taken to the NICU, and one of the doctors came in to see me, and it turns out that the reason I felt so crappy when I was giving birth to Maxie was because they actually cut the placenta while it was still mine. So I had like 12 liters of blood when I started. Like, they figure you have 12 liters of blood when you're super pregnant. Usually you have about 10, I think. I lost 5 liters on the table. And so I was just bleeding to death, is what I was doing, very quietly all over there, all by myself. This one's done, 966. And so I had to have a blood transfusion. And I was like, what? I had no idea. They weren't really telling me what had gone wrong. And they weren't, I think, you know, in retrospect, they were doing a little CYA, which in accounting language, or any language really, is called cover your ass. And they weren't like, I got bits and pieces of the truth. Like, they didn't tell me they cut the placenta that day. They just told me I needed a blood transfusion. So I called my dad, and I was like, Daddy, my dad's a physician. And I was like, Daddy, do I do a blood transfusion? I'm so confused. And he said, if they say you need one, you need one. Okay, fine. So, and like, you may or may not know that women retain a lot of water when they're pregnant, which I sure as heck did. And my feet were so swollen. I mean, I wanted to have these babies already. And then before they can give you a blood transfusion, they gave me a liter of saline. So not only was I freaking bloated from having been pregnant, they were giving me another liter of saline and then a liter of blood. So now I'm like, when I walked, I could feel the water in my feet going shh, 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 like they were sloshing. It was so god-awful. I had my feet up as far as I could get them. I'm trying to breastfeed. I got my feet up. I'm bleeding out here. I got an IV in my arm. my son's been taken away from me. My parents aren't there because we're in California. My parents and my in-laws all live in Montreal. They came in on Tuesday. The babies were born on Sunday. And I'm just like completely overwhelmed, but happy like you wouldn't believe. And then all of a sudden, Sarah's jaundiced, and they take her away to the NICU. So I went from having 2 babies to no babies. And I was like, what the damn hell? What's going on here? Excuse my language. So, it's from a TV show. What show is it? Can't remember. If you know, remind me. What the damn hell? What you talking about? No, that's Willis, and no, this is something else. And so, yeah, had no babies. And then a couple days, then they discharged me because I was back to being myself again. And then we left with no babies, went home, came back the next morning and picked up Sarah. She came home pretty quickly. She was jaundiced. She just needed to be under the lights for a little bit. Her liver just was, jaundice is just like your liver needs a little more time to develop. They put you under like these day glow lights and then you're fine. Maxie, like I said, he was there for like another 10 days after we left with Sarah, which was really sad and really hard too, because I was like completely at a loss as to what I do with the baby. And like, imagine, if you will, being a newborn mom with a newborn baby with a newborn mom at home trying to figure things out, and there's another newborn baby at the hospital waiting for you. And I was just like stretched in all these directions. I kept trying to get back to the hospital and be with Sarah and feed her and feed him, and they're not in the same place, and I can't take her with me because she's just too little. Like I was like, she's little. And so then when Max did come home, so it turns out what happened with Maxie was that placenta that was cut, they send off your placentas to the lab whenever you have twins. It's just standard protocol. And it turns out that one of my placentas was infected. I don't know how it happened. They don't know how it happened, but it was. And that's the one that they cut, and that's the one that Max was swimming around in. And turns out he had pneumonia, which is why his lungs collapsed. And so he probably got pneumonia from swimming in that infected placenta, which he only swam in because they nicked it. They cut it open. And he was in there for 20 minutes. And I honestly think that if I had put all of this together, like this is like years and years of putting together at this point. If I had put it all together sooner, I would have had a good case against them. And I'm not litigious, but man, I'm pissed because they fucked up. They took my perfect baby boy. He was born perfect. He had a perfect APGAR. He was able to latch on, no problem. And within 24 hours, I had a special needs baby. Because when the oxygen was cut off to his brain got damaged. And that's called cerebral palsy, which is an afterbirth defect where you don't have enough oxygen to your brain. And CP, which I did not know before, is just like an umbrella term. It can mean so many different things. And he doesn't have CP to the point where you would look at him and say, oh yeah, that child has CP. He's not like, his muscles aren't so taut, and you know, he can talk and he can walk, not gracefully and not perfectly, but he can. And he doesn't need to do the exercises to keep everything limber or anything. You know, having a special needs baby, you certainly learn all about other types of children with special needs and what they go through. And so I'm umming a lot, which I don't, but it makes me upset to talk about it. So yeah, I think they really screwed up the birth. It went from like so hard to get pregnant to such an easy pregnancy to such a traumatic birth. And then we had no idea what was happening to him. We knew that he never latched again. I never breastfed him again after that one day when he was born. He couldn't figure it out. He could not do it. He was just all slobber. Poor little baby. And we noticed like his toes were always clenched up. Like he was always like clenched in his feet. And they just said, oh, he's a low tone baby. That just means he's got low muscle tone. Didn't tell us what it meant. I thought, oh, but he seems strong. They didn't tell us that low tone is actually the fact that your brain is not it's a neurological thing, not a muscular thing. Your brain is not sending the message to your muscles. So when you go like this, your brain told you to do this, then that. Well, his brain isn't giving those messages aren't going through. Or they're not going through correctly, or they're not going through quickly. But they didn't tell us that. They just said, oh, he needs to be in therapy. So I brought him to therapy. Then they said, okay, we had to give him food therapy. I mean, I didn't understand any of it that was going on. Nothing. I had no clue. And then, while this is happening, my lovely little girl is developing an allergy. Not to milk, not to lactose. She's developing an allergy to milk protein, which is really hard to diagnose. But all I knew was that this little girl wouldn't stop screaming her head off. She screamed because she was crying. She screamed because she was eating. She just screamed and screamed and screamed unless I was holding her and rocking her. And I had this bouncy ball, you know, the exercise balls, and I would sit in that ball and hold her and just bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce and like hit his then try to like bounce his little bouncer with my foot while I just cried and cried. I was so postpartum depressed. The drop in hormones when you have a baby is pretty severe, right? Well, when you're all jacked up on hormones because you're trying to have a baby that you're not naturally doing yourself, and then you drop down to your actual level, which is probably like close to zero, that drop is hard and fast and rough. So I was just like in a daze, trying to tell myself that this is what I wanted, trying to tell myself that everything would be okay. She's gonna grow out of this. She has to. And I remember a friend came and took me to a movie one day. Jared just stayed home with them because I had to leave the house. And she came and took me to a movie, and we were watching this movie. I don't remember what it was, but it was Mickey Rooney, who was like 99.5 years old. And all I could think of the whole movie was, I wonder if he had colic as a baby. He's not crying now. She has to stop crying. And then finally, she was properly diagnosed with this protein allergy. And I was told that she needed this special formula, Nutramigen, which like the tiny little canister of it. Oh, I gave up on breastfeeding. He wouldn't latch. She was screaming all the time. I needed to sleep. This was ridiculous. Yeah, so I gave up on that. They were formula fed, which later on I was like, maybe I gave up too quickly. But at the time, no, there was nothing else I could do. Really wasn't. And so then I had to buy the liquid gold, we called it, because the tiny little canister was like $52. Whereas a normal giant canister, I don't know, maybe it was $20. 977. Sorry. So, but once we put her on that formula, oh, sweetest little baby girl. Just delicious little baby. And Maxie, even more delicious. That kid never bothered anybody. He never needed anything, except he was always hungry. Oh my God, he was so hungry all the time, and he would make this noise. It sounded like he was saying, I'm hungry. He would be like, ungi, ungi, ungi. And we're like, yep, that kid's hungry again. We started giving him like solid rice foods or whatever at like 4 months, because he was just like not ever getting full. It was crazy. He was a 25-pound 6-month-old. I kid you not. And so whenever we would leave the house and we'd have to carry them to the car, we'd both be like, you take the fat one. No, you take the fat one. Because it was heavy. And because he's low tone, he never like helped you hold him. He was just dead weight. So yeah, he was a heavy little boy. He's a heavy big boy now. But yeah, it was just funny. We'd be like, you take the fat one. No, you take the fat one. Sweet little boy. But yeah, so he was not meeting any milestones at all. Oh wait, let me just address my depression for a second. I called the psychiatry office at Kaiser, and I said, yeah, I've had these babies and I'm just I'm not doing well. Something's wrong with me. I don't know what's going on, but something is definitely wrong with me. I've never felt this way before. I'm supposed to be happy and I'm really not. And they said, do you think you're a harm to yourself or others? And I was like, no. And they said, well, if you say you're not, we can see you in 6 weeks. If you say you might be, we can see you tomorrow. I was like, I'm definitely harmful. So, thankfully, she, felt for me and told me to just say whatever I had to say to get in there. And I had, they give you this checklist of 20 questions, and I had 18 of the 20 points for depression. The only 2 I didn't have was, do I want to harm myself and do I want to harm others? Nope, never thought about suicide or hurting anybody. Just wasn't happy. And so for the first time in my life, I started taking anti-anxiety medication. I started taking antidepressives, and I never stopped. I mean, I'm not taking the anxiety stuff anymore because I don't want to. I don't think I need it. And so this past year, I was taking sleeping pills and anti-anxiety medication for a really long time because I just wasn't sleeping, and it's not that I wasn't sleeping, I would wake up every night. Between like 2 and 5, I'd be like wide awake. No clue why. And so I was just taking something so I could sleep through the night. And was never one who could nap. It wasn't me. And then all of a sudden I'm a super napper. I'm sleeping all the time. I'm just so tired. And so, yeah, part of it's having 2 little kids to take care of. But part of it, I was just, and this is only like in the last 6 months, that I was like, you know what, I think I need to just rely on my own natural rhythms for a little while. And yep, a lot of nights, I'm not gonna kid you, I'm downstairs in the basement till like 5, no problem. I'll stay awake all night sometimes and then just drive the kids to school at 7:30 instead of like going to sleep for 20 minutes and then being too tired. And then I just sleep all day, which isn't great. I don't like that. But sometimes I'm just having so much fun I can't go to bed. Like right now, it's almost 2. Do I even sound tired? No, but I did have a very busy day. And so, yeah, so then just like recently I was like, you know what, I'm not going to take sleeping pills anymore because I'm just up too late to take them and then sleep all day. And I was sleeping too much, and I just was like, I'm going to just see where I am naturally. And I think I'm fine. And I even gave up coffee. Now I just drink tea, which is not something I thought I'd do. But I'm just trying not to sleep as much. Not that I think you don't need sleep, because trust me, you need sleep, and I love to sleep. I just don't want to sleep all the time. And I do love my naps. Oh, they're so nice. Oh, a nice nap in the afternoon. That is some heaven right there on a plate. So, getting back to the little ones. When they were So yeah, Max was not meeting milestones. He wasn't sitting, he wasn't crawling, he wasn't standing, he wasn't walking. And then it wasn't till we moved away from Berkeley when they were 18 months old. And we moved to Athens, Ohio, which is like this tiny little town of 10,000 people that blew up to 30,000 when school was in session. And Jared taught at Ohio University there. And, well, he did a postdoc there. And so, I have to tell you about this in a second. This part right here. See? 806. Yeah. I'll tell you in a minute. And then we went to a movie one night, and I was watching it, and there was like this commercial about early intervention and how they could help kids who weren't meeting milestones and help kids with different problems. And I was like, that's exactly what Max needs. I was like, we need help for him. And so that's when he finally started getting we got the right information. We understood what we were supposed to do for him, more or less. We kept being told that he was going to catch right up once he hit kindergarten, or once he hit preschool, or once he was, we were like, oh, he's just delayed. He will just catch right up. I knew he wasn't catching up, but I held out the hope. But yeah, so he's been in like early intervention, and then unfortunately that system is kind of broken, if you know anything about it. And when they turn 3, they age out of intervention, and they go into the school system with their IEP. So I have this 3-year-old baby in kindergarten, because that's where his services were going to be. Isn't that ridiculous? I finally just started driving him around the city myself. I took an hour and a half away was his speech therapist, an hour away was his physical therapist, another just down the street, luckily, was his occupational therapist. And he was in this preschool with Sarah, because I was working again. I went to actually work for the finance department at Ohio University. And silly me, I thought they'd be laid back. I thought, oh yeah, university, it's kind of chill or whatever. These ladies were serious. They did not like that I took my lunch break at 2 o'clock so that I could leave and go take Max to his appointment. They were like, that's very late for lunch. And I was like, that's very none of your business. And then Max started having seizures. He had one seizure at preschool where they called, and my mom happened to be in town, and I was off work that day, and we're out shopping for who knows what for the house. And I got this phone call, and I was just like, and he was having a terrible seizure, and the ambulance was there, and they were taking him to the hospital. And this teeny tiny town had no baby doctor that could deal with this. They couldn't find a vein. They ended up doing a lumbar puncture on this poor little baby. They had to take him by ambulance from Athens, Ohio to Columbus, which is 70 miles away. And then, so one parent goes in the ambulance with him and stays the night and waits for them to see him and at Children's Hospital. And then you're stuck there. And so the other parent has to come to Columbus the next day to pick you up. And so this happened 3 times. Twice he was at daycare. And once he was at home, and I saw it, and I thought he was dying. His eyes just rolled back into his head, and he was just gone. He was just like, he wasn't doing like the shaky shake. He was just stiff as a board. And he wouldn't stop. He wouldn't stop seizing. I was like, what? And then the ambulance comes, and they take him into the ambulance, and he starts throwing up, and he starts choking on his throw up. And they tell me, you need to get out of the ambulance. We need to work on him. And I'm standing outside of the ambulance, and I'm thinking, oh my God, my baby's dying. And then my neighbor comes by and says, oh, have you decided to plant these flowers? And I was like, did you see the ambulance that my child is inside of? Like, what, are you crazy, lady? Yes, she was. And then they they whisked him away to Children's Hospital. They just went straight there that time. And he was okay. Thankfully, he was okay. The seizures were febrile seizures, but they were atypical. And that the seizure itself lasted, instead of, let's say, 5 seconds, it lasted like 3 minutes. And then the postdictal, which is when you're not seizing anymore, but you're not back to normal, instead of like a minute, it was 45 minutes. And it was terrible. Oh, it was just terrible. And so that's when I drove back up to Columbus, because Jared went with him that time, and I stayed home with Sarah. And I had to go get him the next day. And so I couldn't go to work. I had to go get my baby and my husband from the Children's Hospital in Columbus. And they were like giving me hassles about it. They're like, oh, well, you know, you miss a lot of work for him. And, you know, what's your plan? And I said, what's my plan? My plan is I'm leaving. I quit. I'm not even giving you 2 weeks notice because I think you're awful. And good luck with that. Bye-bye. But before I did that, I was like, well, I'll think about it. I went in the hall, called my husband. He said, yeah, quit. And I did. And then I was a stay-at-home mom. And my husband worked. And I didn't want my baby having another seizure at daycare. And I didn't want my work to be like, oh, well, you need to be here. We don't care if your baby's sick. And I was like, you know what? Bye. And so then I stayed home, and I haven't worked for, well, no, that's not true. I've worked from home for somebody else since. But mostly I've just worked for myself ever since. Financially, no, not the best decision. But emotionally and for my family and the welfare of everybody, definitely the best decision. And so that's the story, Morning Glory, of how we made those little babies and how I just love them. But man, sometimes we just look at each other and we're like, we paid for this? This was a choice, and we said, okay, it's worth a lot of money to go through this grief and this, you know, all the problems that come with it. And so we have to laugh sometimes that this was absolutely a choice. We didn't have to do this, but yeah, every day I think we are happy that we did, and by the end of the day we question that decision. So yeah, that is the story of the babies and a little bit extra, and it's 1 hour and 7 minutes. 996. There you are. Okay, there you go. And I've only done a tiny bit of what I have for the 900s. Oh my god, I'm gonna be here forever. Alright, 950. It's done. I just have to trim them and put them in their little home. This is gonna be worth it, right? This has gotta be worth it. Because, yeah, it has to be. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be so fantastic. La-di-da. Alright, just trim this down so it's in more manageable bites. It's a lot of 950s. Yeah. La 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 la. Okay, well, I think it's my turn to go watch someone else talk about whatever while they play with these little tiny pieces of diamonds, which are not diamonds, but they are, in our eyes, aren't they? In our eyes, they're just worth their little weight in diamonds. Yeah. So, until next time, drill yourself a good one. Ciao.